Good morning. John Gilkison here. It's Monday, June 8th, 2020. I've been wanting to shoot a new video. Over the last couple weeks, I've gotten 2 or 3 new subscribers, and I feel compelled to try to put something out if people like what I'm doing. So what's been happening with me is between the coronavirus, which has kind of changed the lay of the land out there, and the Black Lives Matter protest that's been going on over the last week because of the police killing black men and our citizens. My mind is kind of been in a turmoil because just so much going on. It's even affected my sleep and, anxiety about the day's events and trying to get to sleep and so forth. And it really doesn't help with coherent thinking, let's put it that way. Of course, it's not about me, but so anyway, I ran across this article called Collapse of Civilization is the Most Likely Outcome, and it's by some Australian climate scientists. And what they were talking about is that we only have about 10 years to bend the curve. In other words, if by 2030 we don't significantly, and by significantly I take it to mean more than 50, 60%, 90% would be a really good goal for reducing carbon emissions. And if we don't do that, we're just going to go through the guardrails. There's no chance right now that we can reach the 1.5 C target, set by the Paris Accords. And they're saying 2C is most likely outcome. And what that does is it initiates, and has initiated already, a bunch of self-reinforcing feedback loops, which means we'll just continue to go on above 2C on up to 4C. And what they're saying is that, and that'll be completely out of our control. It doesn't matter what we do. We'll just, these cascading effects will just continue to warm up the planet. And that at 4 degrees Celsius, they say that the Earth cannot support more than less than a billion people, 0.7 billion people, something like that, 700 million people. So for that to happen, a lot of people are going to have to perish. And so these are decisions being made right now, and we only have 10 years. And so what kind of triggered my thinking on this was watching our clown in chief, Trump, and then there was a response by the Secretary of Defense, I believe, talking about using troops in America to quell the riots, like that was a good idea. And they were even talking about, they used the term Battlespace in reference to American territory. It's just a totally outrageous comment by our Secretary of Defense. But that idea, that word, just got me to thinking there is a battle space for the American mind, and for people all over the world, that there's a battle space for your heart and mind. And that's in response to this climate chaos coming right at us. And it's not even on the radar for most people yet. It's just not. The average person doesn't think there's anything they can do about it. It's a distant concern and so forth. And that's the trouble with climate change. I liken it to freight cars on a railroad siding with just a slight grade. Well, it starts moving slowly, but you can't get in front of it, and you and dozens of other people even can't get in front of a bunch of loaded railroad cars. And if they're moving 1 mile an hour, you can push all you want, but you're not going to stop them. they'll just keep going. And this is the way climate change is. The climate system just has tremendous momentum, mass to it. And that's in the enthalpy, of the oceans, for example, and which have warmed up a bit. And the ice on the planet holds a lot of thermal mass, which is, once it's melted, it's going. It only takes I think 144 BTUs to melt ice, and how does that work now? I forget the numbers. It takes a tremendous amount of BTUs to melt ice, and there's no change in temperature at all. And then once it's melted, every pound of water heats up with the 1 BTU, heats it up 1 degree Fahrenheit. So it's 144 BTUs to bring it to boiling, so per pound. So it's just crazy what's going on, and I know with all the protests and riots around the world over police brutality, which are much needed, I'm behind them 100%. I've been thinking for a long time our police are out of control. When it takes 2 or 3 squad cars to pull a person over to give them a ticket for speeding or something, it's just it's like the police are afraid of us. Anyway, this whole move towards authoritarianism, and the police are going to be the most visible symbol of it. They're what's going to try to enforce authoritarianism. But the authorities are not in control, and they cannot be in control because there's just simply way too many people in the general population for them to thwart. If en masse people wanted to do something, they could do something. And the police would never stop them. And besides, the police are part of the civilian population also, so they could, and many of them have come over to the other side. I'll give you an example of this, which I thought was just a good scene in the movie Chernobyl, and that was where the Minister of Coal went to a coal mine and was wanting to talk to the coal miners to order them basically to go to Chernobyl and dig underneath Chernobyl to help the government with their effort to contain the radiation there. And so these coal miners are all standing out there. There's 30, 40 of them, and they're standing there, and the Minister of Coal Production's there with 2 armed guards on either side of him with machine pistols, and the coal miners were willing to help, but they didn't like the idea of him trying to threaten them and intimidate them into it. And the leader of them told the minister and the two policemen or soldiers that were with him, they said, "You can't kill us all. I said, as those of us who are left will get to you, and we will beat you to death." And I like the attitude that was there, because the police, as militarized as they are, will break if the whole of the population of the United States decides to refuse to cooperate. And that can take many forms. It doesn't have to take protest. But anyway, I'm getting off the subject. What I'm trying to say here is that there's a real battle space for your mind that's going on, and it's going to happen in the next 10 years. If we don't get off fossil fuels will kill us. It's going to kill us all, and it's coming a lot faster than people imagine. It's not a distant thing. This always throwing a number out there, what's going to happen in 2100 is ridiculous. Climate change is happening right now, and it's going to accelerate, and you're going to start seeing loss of food production. You're going to start seeing more and more floods, pandemics, job insecurity, more and more people out of work, our society is going to start breaking down and not function in many ways because of climate change. So, and this is the real thing, started by Greta Thunberg. That movement there has been put on the back burner for a while recently. But this is, I have to say it, it's the most important movement in all of humanity. Because if we don't do something about our carbon emissions and getting off of fossil fuels, literally civilization is going to collapse, the whole of civilization. And we may not survive as a species. And I can't think of anything more important than that, at least from a human's perspective. From other perspectives, from other creatures, we're probably a big detriment. It'd be best if we were gotten rid of, but that's another story. Last I checked, I'm still a human, so I'm still thinking like one, like we're important. So there you are. I wrote this blog. It's The Real Battlespace is for Our Hearts and Minds, and I published it on Electric Vehicle Organization, EVO, Southern New Mexico, SNM, Facebook page, which is an electric car site. And so, and I was talking about a few things in the blog, which are helpful. Electric cars play a part in this. If you can switch to electric cars, even if you're charging off the grid, the grid's a lot cleaner than it used to be, and you'll definitely reduce your carbon emissions. And we here, we produce 120% of our electrical needs with solar power, so we would definitely reduce our carbon emissions with a pure electric car. Right now we're driving a plug-in hybrid electric, which only accounts for 60% of our local driving in electric mode, but it's still a big improvement over just a gasoline engine. But there's other things. Heat pumps for your house. Unfortunately, once you've built your house, there it is, but houses should be built with enough insulation and radiant barrier in them that air conditioning needs are vastly reduced, and that hasn't been done. We did a pretty good job building this house, but knowing what I now know I would have done a lot better. I'd have went to 2-foot centers with 2x6s, and today I would put rock wool in the walls. You'd be R23 in the walls and a 1/2-inch foam board foil faced on the outside. You'd be at R27 or so, and triple glazed window instead of double glazed windows. And the air conditioning needs in this house would even be less than they are by quite a bit. And it's one of those things I wish I knew knew then what I know now. But anyway, so those kinds of things, individuals can reduce their carbon emissions by up to 90%. There's even heat pump water heaters. You might want to consider even getting rid of gas cook stoves. Also, unfortunately, you'd need to switch to an electric dryer, which is, I don't have any experience with them, but then obviously they don't use as much electricity as water heating does, I don't think. But anyway, that still leaves the larger society out there, which is responsible for a lot of carbon emissions that you don't have any control over. But we have to start somewhere, and every individual has to do what they can. So I want to shut it down right here. The real battle space is for our hearts and minds, and that's going to be climate change, which is going to kill us all. That's the major message I was after, and it's coming, folks. It's got to be done in the next 10 years. Significant reduction in carbon emissions, or we're toast. I'll talk to you on down the road. Bye-bye.